that receptive mode is such a sweet feeling space, isn't it?
Yeah. And so I know what it's like to actually be connected to Source now. And the question that I have, or what I'd love some direction on, is some of the relationships with them in my life, particularly my brother is my business partner. We're expanding and we're our business, and it's great and it's exciting. And I am able to show up with that kind of direction and energy and where we're going. And a lot of times he's completely the opposite and just brings up all the fears and the what's not going to work out and why we're screwing up. And sometimes it's difficult for me to keep my own vision going and I guess the other thing is I go to this defensive mode, and I worry if I'm not going to, what if I screw it all up, kind of thing.
Well, here's the thing, and you're really going to enjoy this. So what happens with someone like you, it's happening with a lot of you, it's happening with Esther, is that you're beyond step 3, you're in step 4. So you've sort of mastered that. It's easy for you now to stay in that receiving mode. And so you're in the receiving mode, and you get impulses and you follow through with them. And Esther calls it the magic of the universe. She knows it's not magic, but it's like she'll get in this little sort of vortex of energy that's moving, where it feels like everything is effortless and everything is happening, and it's just bam, 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 one wonderful thing after another. And she'll say, oh man, this is the way to live, and I'm so happy that I've accomplished this and that I understand it and I'm living this way. And then she'll come into a working situation with someone that she really cares about, and it's like awkward and tripping and stumbling because the other person is doing some of what you're talking about. And so the human response is, how come you can't flow with me? I meditate every day and I've learned to flow, and the universe is cooperating with me until I hook up with you, and you make it harder. If you would just flow, it would be so much better for me. And then Esther remembers, I'm doing that thing I do where I'm living a conditional life, and I'm letting this condition take me out of the receptive mode. And all that's gone wrong here, the reason the magic went away for a minute, is not because this person is persistently hard, but because my perception of this person has taken me out of the receptive mode. If we could convince you and Esther that it's not your brother that is the kink in the hose, it's your attention to your brother that's put the kink in your hose. And if you could just see him as this glorious step 1 individual. Somebody's got to keep putting the gas in the tank.
Yeah.
Yeah? You're all blissed out. The universe is giving you whatever you want. Let him live the hard life, and he can put all the stuff in there. And you just get happy. Allow the thoughts to flow. And every now and again, say to him, thank you for the struggle that you live. Because it is your struggle that keeps causing the asking to happen. And oh boy, is our business benefiting by your struggle. And me, meanwhile, I'm just living happily ever after. Now, that makes perfect sense. You really got that. A lot of you got that. But here's the only thing that goes wrong with that. The one who struggles doesn't like it when you're not.
Right. Yeah.
The one who is struggling doesn't like it that you've got the easy job. And it's almost impossible to convince them that they could have it too.
Head in the clouds, pie in the sky.
Because so many people really believe in the struggle and the effort part of it. And so just fake it a little. Just struggle a little. Let your tongue hang out just a little more, Just pretend that it's harder than it is, just to appease them. But meanwhile, know what's going on.
Yeah. So just really let him know that I hear him, and maybe say, a couple words of understanding, but I don't have to internalize.
You make a good point, and thanks for pointing that out. And that's something that we'll solve along the way. And I like how astute you are, and I love being your partner, and things are really working out well. And I think we work well together, and different approaches make for a sounder whole. And meanwhile, just don't let him get to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Something else?
Maybe related to that is just when I'm not on that high flying disc.
There's no hope for you.
And I immediately go to this like sort of self-protected mode or something, and I want to lash back out.
It's logical
in that
because
moment.
when you are in the receiving mode, where you can feel the power of the universe coursing to you and through you, it's the opposite of feeling vulnerable. You feel invincible, you feel exhilarated, you feel capable. But when you slip from that, it's normal that you would feel defensive or justify or rationalize a little bit. So just take the emotion as your signal that you're not, for whatever reason, don't try to pinpoint what it is. Don't blame somebody else and don't blame yourself. You're just not in your true power. We like to call that receptive mode. It's the receptive mode. It's the art of allowing. It's the clarity mode. It's the replenishing mode. So if you stay there often enough that you're replenished, you rarely fall out of it. But sometimes you're not allowing the replenishment because you're not consistent enough in it. So when you fall out of it, you've just got to let yourself be out of it and don't struggle and try to get back to it so fast, because that's what makes you feel defensive. That's what Esther was feeling, is that, hey, I'm used to soaring, and when I'm not soaring, I'm not happy, and you're keeping me from soaring, so cut it out. Well, that's really back to the basics, isn't it? When you're blaming one other person for the way you feel, that's a step 1 moment. So you can make that a step 5 moment. We told you we'd tell you about step 5. Step 5 is when you're back in step 1 and you're not beating up on yourself about it. You're back in step 1 and you accept that contrast is important and that you want to keep putting more into the vortex. Think about it this way. We really like this. So do you get this concept of all of these eggs, so to speak, in the pipeline? All of these creations in the pipeline becoming more and more and more and more ready for manifestation. And really, you want to keep putting them in so that they can keep coming out. And there's satisfaction all along the way, and of course manifestation is way satisfying. But if you don't have a little bit of contrast to clarify what you want, then this part isn't so sweet either. So that's the concept of step 5, is that of course I want clarification and contrast. Sometimes you have to live in a house with not enough closets to know that you want more closets. And that focus feels good to you when you allow it. So I want to talk briefly. Knowing what you know about the laws of the universe and knowing what you know about your vortex, your inner being, source energy, and all of our interest in what you've got going on. Under those conditions, right here and now, as you're knowing that, and the way you were feeling as you were first offering your words of appreciation when you first sat down, is there ever any logical explanation or excuse for feeling disempowered?
No.
It's completely illogical, isn't it? In other words, it makes no sense. And when you feel that disempowerment, the whole reason for feeling disempowerment is because the disempowerment in and of itself is illogical. It's completely illogical. Our friend offered the word compassion earlier, and we like the word compassion so much because what compassion is feeling like your inner being feels. Your inner being could be looking at someone suffering, and your inner being doesn't suffer even though they're seeing someone suffering. Jesus, you could be dripping your illness and he did not see your illness, he just knew your wellness. And because he knew your wellness, your illness could not abide in his vibration, so it could not express itself under that dominant vibration. As he knew for a little bit, you knew. That's what we're really talking about. When you've practiced being in alignment with your inner being on this subject and this subject and this subject and this subject and this subject, just so that it's easy for you, and then you find a subject where it's not so easy, you can fall back on that, knowing that the process exists and that the laws exist and the source exists and that the energy exists. And in just a matter of seconds or minutes, you can remind yourself that vulnerability is an illusion. Vulnerability is a discordant focus that is just pinching off true thought. And as you play with this a little and you really find your balance so that you've got your sea legs no matter what, those feelings of disempowerment will become non-existent.
So the idea of being at the effect of anything outside of me, that's like the power is within
But it's
me.
as simple as this. You can break it down this simply. So whatever comes to me is because of my point of attraction, and my point of attraction is because of what I think. But if I'm thinking about what you think, then what you think is affecting me. And if I think that you have to stop thinking that so that I'm not effective, then I have no power. But if I accept that what's happening to me is only about what I think, and I don't have to think what you think, can you feel that powerful distinction? But as humans who are so used to being focused upon what's happening out here, it takes a little while before you're not influenced by what others are thinking, especially about what they're thinking about you. That's the thing about family members, is that you've been hanging around with them for a long time, and your vibrational roots go way back, meaning there's usually quite a bit of momentum. So you've been kind of proving yourself to your brother for a rather long time, and your brother to you. These are not new thoughts, these are old thoughts. And some of the thoughts that you have about each other really serve you, and some of the thoughts that you have about each other don't serve you. And you've got to sort out which thoughts you have about your brother that are vibrationally equivalent to what your inner being thinks, and what thoughts you have about yourself that your brother thinks about you are vibrational equivalency. And so what it really comes down to is, who you gonna lean toward, what your brother thinks or what your inner being thinks? And you see, you've been listening for long enough that that's a viable choice for you. A lot of people, when we say that, it's like blah 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 blah, because this part is not active enough in your vibration yet that you have a choice. So you're just always looking for someone to appreciate you or to approve of you, especially those people that have been hanging around in your family for a long time. Approval feels so good when someone holds you as their object of attention, and they're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, and they're looking at you, and they're flooding all that pure positive energy all over you. Oh boy, does that feel good. But if they're not hooked in and they're looking at you, ooh, not so good. Or if they look away, that's not so good either. So you just can't have dependency upon what anybody else thinks about you. But you see, that's not the only thing that trips you up. It's not only what somebody else thinks about you that could hinder your vibrational equivalency with your inner being. It's what you think about others that can hinder it too. So when you get down on your brother, even though he deserves it, you lose your mojo. And so what you're defensive about is not anything he's doing. What you're defensive about is what you're doing to yourself.